So we're starting a beginning Hebrew course real soon, and I had a question this morning inside the Mastery membership, the Greek Mastery membership, about when should we start Hebrew. So I wanted to answer that in today's video. So let's get into it. Hey there, I'm Darryl Burling from Biblical Mastery Academy, here to help you with the tools, habits, and system to learn the Greek of the New Testament so you can read and study the New Testament in the original writing. And now we've got coming up Hebrew as well. Now, one of the questions we have regular meetings inside the Biblical Mastery Academy community, office hours calls, we have text reading calls and so on. And today in our office hours call, we started talking just briefly at the end about the Hebrew Mastery membership that's starting up very soon. And somebody said, how much Greek should we have behind us before we learn Hebrew? And that's a really good question, because if you know anything about how seminaries teach Greek and Hebrew, they typically tend to interleave them, which means to say that sometimes you'll be learning both languages at once, and sometimes you're learning one, then the other, then you're back to the other, and so on and so forth. And this means then that you've got a lot of language stuff all going on all at once, which makes it really quite challenging to keep up with. And given that Greek is already difficult enough, then we want to ask the question, or how much Greek do I need to get behind me before I start on Hebrew as well? But one thing that's not too difficult to do, which I'd encourage you to do, is to hit that like button below. And if you're on mobile, you'll see the little sparkles, which will give you a good feeling as you do that. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notify bell as well. So this question really comes down to a question of where are you at with your Greek right now? Are you ready to learn Hebrew? And if so, how do you know? Here's the thing. How are you going with your Greek? It's really a question of how do you feel about your Greek right now. Now, bear in mind that the beginning Greek process is literally beginning Greek. You'll get to the end of beginning Greek and you will probably feel, like 99.9% of people do, that you're really still struggling with Greek. Greek is still very foreign, it's very hard, you're very slow with it, and that's not really where you want to be. This is not the kind of level of fluency or mastery that you want to be at for very long, right? So you want to figure out, well, how do I get beyond that? And so my encouragement, even though many seminaries will have you learn beginning Greek, then they'll take you into beginning Hebrew, then maybe you'll go back to intermediate, Greek, and then into intermediate Hebrew, something like that, or maybe you'll be doing them both together. My recommendation is that you, especially if, as you finish Greek, you've still got a whole bunch of jumbled ideas in your head that haven't really settled, you probably want to let those ideas settle before you jump into another language, okay? And so when it comes to Greek and Hebrew then, my recommendation is, if you can do it, and not everybody can, is that you allow your knowledge of Greek to settle, not just so that you finish beginning Greek, but so that you really have a good handle even on intermediate Greek, syntax and grammar, and you can identify the way an infinitive is working in a particular context, or perhaps how a participle is functioning in a context. You want to have the ability to read the text and be able to look at that grammar and have that knowledge so that you can work that out on the fly without any real challenges. Because once you've got to that level, that's when you've kind of got those things bedded down a little bit and you're less likely to forget about them. That means then you can go back into Hebrew, and beginning Hebrew is going to reinforce many of the things you learned in beginning Greek, and it's going to introduce new things. And there's a lot of new things to learn in Hebrew. There are new stems to learn. There are new ways of even talking about verbs and things like that. So you want to have those things down, and there's a lot more in terms of, paradigms and things like, well, there's not a lot of more paradigms, but some of the paradigms are a lot more complex for Hebrew than they are for Greek. So you want to get some of those things in Greek settled so that you have some mental clarity and mental space to be able to get clarity, I guess, with Hebrew as you go through it. So that's the first thing. If you can allow those things to settle so that you're no longer trying to remember, oh, third declension, oh, how does this word work? Or what is this form again? What's going on here? So once you're translating a little bit and you've got a bit of confidence in that, that's when you're in a really good position to start learning another language like Hebrew, okay? So that was my first recommendation. The reality is, though, that most of you are not going to have the freedom to be able to get to that point, especially if you're in seminary. And so in that case, all I can recommend really is that wherever you're at, keep going with your Greek on a day-by-day basis. And particularly, here's what I encourage you to do. First of all, continue to review your paradigms or at least passing on a day-by-day basis. If you've learnt paradigms and you don't have those paradigms nailed down yet and you're still struggling with passing, continue to review the passing paradigms. And if you're interested in more details on this, I've got 4 steps that I give every person going through beginning Greek, which includes paradigms, passing, vocabulary, and translation. If you're interested in that, click the link. I'll just leave it up here for you so you can go and look at those 4 steps. So you might need to continue to do the paradigms for a little while. And then once you've finished those paradigms, you'll also want to continue to practice your passing on a regular basis as well. It only takes a couple of minutes a day, but just continue to do that just to keep that passing fresh. And you also want to keep reviewing vocabulary and possibly even adding your new vocabulary to what you know of Greek. And then the most important thing is to be reading just a little bit every day. In fact, here's my recommendation. On a day-by-day basis, just review some of the paradigms. Spend 5 to 10 minutes reviewing paradigms. Spend a bit of time reviewing your vocabulary as you normally would, depending on where you're at. That might be 10 minutes a day. It could be 20 minutes a day. But just review the vocabulary you've got and then add new vocabulary at a slightly slower rate than you normally would. And then read the text that vocabulary goes in. Now, if you're in the Biblical Mastery Academy, this is going to be easy because we give you vocabulary, which you can just do 1 lesson every week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. Add vocabulary, it's going to give you the reading, and that's going to be nice and easy. If you don't have that, you can get a copy of our student edition, which is the vocab pack essentially, which we're going to be upgrading soon. If you want a copy of that, again, there'll be a link in the description below where you can go grab a copy of that. It's at bma.to/vocab, bma.to/vocab. Okay, so you can get a copy of that there, and that will also give you the vocab and then the reading to go with that vocab. So you can learn to read the New Testament bit by bit and just keep doing that while you're starting on Hebrew. Just slow the pace down a little bit and spend 5 to 10 minutes a day just reading a little bit of Greek every day. Read through a passage over a period of a week or 2 weeks and then just repeat it if you need to and just take your time. But just keep reading, keep expanding your knowledge of Greek. Just slow it down a little bit while you're doing Hebrew. And then in your Hebrew, that's where you're going to want to spend a good chunk of time each day. 30 minutes a day, probably at a minimum, on beginning Hebrew to learn the paradigms that are there, to learn the vocabulary that's there, to complete the workbook exercises that are there as well. So it's much the same concept as what you learned with Greek. The same 4 steps still apply, and that's, you know, so as long as you're doing those, you'll find that you'll be able to put those 2 things together. But it is quite a bit of work to add Hebrew to Greek. But here's the question. You're not the first person to do this. And so if you've been through and you've learnt Greek and Hebrew, maybe in seminary, maybe on your own, leave a comment in the comment section below. Let us know your experiences. Which one did you learn first? Which one did you find harder to learn? And let us know what you did to try and overcome it. We'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. You probably got some great tips that we can all learn from, so let us know in the comment section below. Again, I hope this has been a helpful video. It's never too learn to begin with 1 language. Even 2, but it depends on who you are, where you're at, and so on. If you are interested in learning these languages, go to bma.to/Greek to start on Greek, or /Hebrew to start on Hebrew, and we'd love to help you out and get you started as soon as we can. But again, thanks for watching. Keep taking small, consistent steps toward mastery, even if you're mastering 2 languages, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. We'll see you then.